with me, what I'll do, I'll just introduce you and then I'll go and sort out the slides, I think. The Jaffna Peninsula has a population of around 600,000 people and untapped potential for greater investment. The area has witnessed strong economic growth, helped by major infrastructure projects. The fertile land lends itself well for agro-related businesses, so there is now a focus on value addition to food processing to cater for domestic and international demands. The 5th Jaffna Trade and Investment Fair took place last month, featuring over 250 local and international businesses and had over 50,000 visitors. According to the General Manager of Lanka Exhibition, Jaffna is cash rich, as at least one family member per household is living overseas. Further, mobile phone technology is in high usage, and this is due to a lack of fixed connections, making Jaffna a good place for mobile app-based technologies. Bernard, there may in fact be an opportunity for you to investigate as well. We now have 2 specialist speakers on trade and investment. For speed, I intend to introduce them both in one go. The first is GOTHAMI Silva. GOTHAMI was appointed to the Sri Lankan High Commission in London in December 2018. Her diplomatic career spans 31 years, during which time she's played an instrumental role in shepherding Sri Lanka's trade policy at all levels. She will talk us through trade concessions available to generate new businesses and investment in Jaffna and the benefits that that investment has also brought the region already. GOTHAMI is highly regarded as a technocrat within the government of Sri Lanka. She has detailed expertise in trade, negotiations, tariffs and trade remedies, and has worked on specific trade-related projects, including sustainable fishery management issues, labour and the environment. Finally, we will have SUJEEVAN Pererera, who is the trade advisor from the Commonwealth Secretariat in London. SUJEEVAN is an internationally recognised expert in trade facilitation, customs modernisation, supply chain audits, port productivity, market development, foundation management and public sector restructuring. He has delivered quality outcomes in challenging circumstances in Asia, Africa and the Pacific region. He has experience of leading successful programs in both public and private sectors, having worked with diverse international agencies, government bodies, industry associations and private sector organisations. SUJEEVAN has played an active role in the establishment of the Commonwealth States Trade Finance Facility. Now, I've asked both of our speakers to keep their presentations to 15 minutes, each to enable a fruitful question and answer session, so I will be quite strict on time, but you can probably elaborate in your answers to some of the questions on some of the things you want to talk about. So, GOTHAMI Silva, can I call you up, please?
While Chamali is bringing my presentation, let me first express my sincere appreciation to all the office bearers of the Sri Lanka Friends Association for giving me this opportunity, and His Excellency the High Commission is also there. It's really a privilege to make this presentation in her presence, because since I have taken over my duties here, so this is the first presentation that I'm going to make today. I hope that it would be very informative as expected by the organizers, and try to be very short with my presentation.
GOTHAMI, do you want the microphone? It's just to your right.
I hope everyone can hear me. Is there any difficulty?
No. I think it's fine.
Yeah, you should.
I actually wanted to capture a few of the key socio-economic indicators of the northern province. I'm taking the entire province, of course Jaffna is the capital, and particularly looking at, I think we have to go back.
Yes, we're trying, I think.
Anyway, I have my printed sort of thing. Now, I think the High Commissioner also mentioned about the importance of Jaffna and the northern province as a whole, because it's an emerging province which is significantly contributing to the GDP. I think the share, of course, remains around 5 to 6% of Sri Lanka's. That's all right, sure. Sorry. So my presentation is actually going to evolve on these topics, but I may, due to the time constraint, may skip some of the slides. And so the population in Jaffna, as you may see, the entire province is actually in the range of 5 to 6%. Vis-a-vis the total population. So here we're talking of a population, significant population, contributing significantly to our key economic indicators. The GDP contribution, if you look at the overall contribution, it's of course remains at a slightly lower level, around 4.5%. This indicates that there are a lot of potentials to really enhance this contribution with the developments that we are going to see in the province. And the most striking feature is the poverty level is very high in this area, northern province. And similarly, the distribution of industrial, it's compared to that overall distribution, it's really less 3%. And also the unemployment is quite high in this province. And now coming to the economic activity, here we have taken into account the service sector, the trade sector, the industry sector, and the agriculture. Now agriculture, it's again the national average is 7.7%, and but in northern actually it's 11.9%. So again, it shows that there are a lot of room for development in the agriculture sector. The industry, of course, it's quite a different picture altogether. So we have it's again, I think, the national average, but compared to the other districts, other provinces, it's not performing well. And the service sector, it's very striking again. It's more or less mirrors the national level. And now, sorry. When I said the industrial sector, this actually the table shows in detail what is really happening. Now, there are two types of investment that can come to Sri Lanka under the BI law and under the normal law of the country. So now we have two institutions which are really promoting a lot of investment into Sri Lanka. So under the BOI, there are only around, out of this 35, I think it is only 23 entities that firms that have coming to under the BOI law, and then other 11 number of establishments which have come under the normal law. So this actually shows again the industrialization in the province is lagging behind. Now, this actually shows a very clear picture again. These are recent data which I got from the Board of Investment. Now, under Section 17 and 16, there are only 28, as of today, 28 number of investment, that is the kind of number of investments. Then coming to the ownership, see only 100% foreign ownership only into investments, and mainly it is the local investment. I think Ambassador, my High Commissioner, also mentioned about this in her intervention, that a lot of diaspora and tie up with the Sri Lankan who are living in Jaffna and Northern Province have actually contributed to it. So this again shows that a lot of room for the foreign investment into the country. Now, the major foreign investors, if you look at that, the joint ventures and the foreign part ownership, it has come from mainly from India, United Kingdom. So this is not very healthy, but I think we have to know this is one of the setbacks in our policies. So looking at the regional distribution again, so Jaffna, of course, already attracted the highest number of investment out of the 26. And the sectors, it's again concentrating on a very narrow sectoral basis. mainly the utilities, because with the infrastructure development, I think the demand is for more utilities, but apparel we have only 7. I mean, compared to the national average, it's low. I think this is the recent the picture that you see. So what are the lessons that we have learned? I think the lessons learned is that post-war restructuring strategies mainly concentrated on very narrow scope of infrastructure development, and then coming to the I can't see them, that's why. Yes, so it is mainly centered on building the infrastructure, then expansion of credit and to promote employment, and then encouragement of private sector investment. So it has not met expectations in delivering sustained economic growth, employment, and increased household incomes of the population in North. So this is the we have lessons. So we are now taking a lot of efforts to correct these setbacks. Now, how do we do that? It's basically, I think the government has recently launched Economic Development Framework for the Northern Province. This is a very recent document. It's a master plan, which was actually presented at a conference held in February 2019, which reflects the current socio-economic challenges the Northern Province is facing, and the possible remedies as well as recommendations. I think this document is already available on the website, and it's in the public domain. So a lot of people, I think, will be able to read this and then understand as to how they're going to really implement this master plan. And then, in addition, they also have evolved a special incentive scheme that is basically will be channeled through the Board of Investment to attract foreign and local investors willing to locate their investments in the Northern Province. Due to time constraints, I may not go into all these details. So what I will do is I see that this is going to be circulated to everyone. And now coming to the master plan. Now they have identified the thrust areas. Yeah, this is the one. Agriculture, industries, and services. So you can see the areas where they're going to focus on in agriculture, invest in agriculture to achieve household and food security. Because our agriculture sector is not only providing employment, but also offers many food security aspects, because it addresses many security aspects. And then it to be profitably and sustainable, and widespread productivity improvements, and then reduce the risk of affecting sustainable agriculture, because they have a huge problem of water scarcity, because they have to rely on either rain-fed or either irrigation. So that is one of the obstacles that they are planning to overcome. And the industries, so agro-based processing, value addition, crop-based industries, and light manufacturing. These are all product areas where we have got the concessions under the EU GSP scheme. So I think though they have not really built up a linkage with the concessions, but it's natural that the region has a lot of potentials, and it really matches with the demand or the opportunities that we have got under the GSP Plus scheme. And then again, it talks about the services. I mean, these are areas that the British investors may find very interesting. The financial service, the public transport, care services, because they see there is a lot of aging population which may require their care services. So water and sanitation is a major issue, and the long-term viability of the IT and tourism, which Chamali focused on. So these plans are going to be implemented through National Planning Bureau. And now going into the incentive scheme, so these are the which are very much carved out for Northern Province. that's I think 200% capital allowance enhanced. That is against the other regions, because normally the scheme will be operated on the basis of recognizing the provinces as disadvantaged, and they have certain criteria to define what are the regions that would be recognized as disadvantaged regions. To Jaffna, the northern province, gets the priority over that. And so this again, the concessions in different form. And so let me now go into the agriculture sector. So the products that are normally can be cultivated in the northern province are these products. I think what we see is in the master plan not to export them or to market them in Sri Lanka as it is, but in added value form. I think I just show a packet. Now I met this young lady who is trying to promote this product in this market, and she claims that the chili, it's actually a mixture and a lot of chilies in it, and she said the chilies actually come from Trincomalee. So I think these are the products that we want to generate and really set up through innovation, and it comes in a nice package. I think my colleague SUJEEVAN also will be talking of many examples to talk about the potentials the province can have in introducing new products such as this. It's about the trade. I think United Kingdom is very much important to us. Out of the entire EU 28 right now, it is within EU 28. So nearly 25% of our products actually do come to UK. And the products that normally Sri Lanka exports are the apparel and made up articles, the footwear, tea. Then we also have other items, very much limited in basket, and the concessions, even the utilization. So we still it is dominated by garments. This is an area because we have only four investment in the apparel sector in the northern province, as I showed in my previous slides. So this is an area where we feel that with utilizing these concessions that now the government is offering, a lot of companies would be moving to northern province, and the production will end up in this market and EU market utilizing the concessions, the GSP plus concessions. And so that have potential, certain products. Here again, we see food preparations, and then petroleum and other vessels, like vessel crafts and things like that. I think a lot of electrical items, because we saw even in the master plan, they recognize the light engineering sector. And so this is the potential area for investment. I think we will have these sectors across the country, but particularly focusing on Jaffna, most of the sectors are going to be very prominent for the Jaffna, for the northern province. So with that, I will stop my presentation. I hope I manage it within the time, but certainly I'll be happy to take any questions which the audience may have. Thank you.
Thank you very much, GOTHAMI. Sujeevan, if you'd like to come up. As I said, we'll do the questions and answers at the end.
Okay. Yeah, okay. Thank you. Good evening, and hi, Commissioner. Chamali, I met her only about 10 days ago at a reception. Within 5 minutes, she sort of persuaded me to come to this event and speak. So that's the persuading power of Chamali. Thank you very much for the effort, and I'm very privileged to come here and speak. Unlike Chamali, I am very fortunate that in my childhood I had the privilege of experiencing life in the north of Sri Lanka, because my father was involved in the agricultural sector. He was a kind of area manager for one of the companies called Browns in those days in Sri Sri Lanka in the north and the east. Then later on, he was one of the few people within the southern community to own a farm in Vaunia, just north of Vaunia on Piliamkulam on the A9 road. And that farm was named after me. It was called SUJEEVAN Farm. So I was very privileged. I have a very fond memories of a childhood going to the northern Sri Lanka, especially because my father also very devoted Hindu. He followed Hinduism very closely, so we had the privilege of visiting all the kovils in the north. And as a child, I was always very proud to say that I could recite all the stations from Colombo to Kankasanture those days. I remember all the names and the trains, the Yaldevi and Uttara Devi trains from Colombo to Kankasanture. So I'm still don't ask me now, but my memory is a little bit late. But so very understood the sort of the agricultural perspective of the area. That's why when Chamali asked me to speak about this event and what can I say about the investment opportunity, I think the agriculture can play a major role within the area. And also the present plans and other things are looking at the macro side, the big industrial main. But what I'm going to speak about is to how the community can get involved in the investment sector, a very simple product, community-based, and how that product anyone can grow it. There's not a mass industrialization or mass plantation. Anyone can get involved in this and can have value addition. Also, everybody, especially for women and youth who are looking for new investment opportunities, this could be a new product. So. Yeah, okay. So what I'm looking at a niche product, and if anyone can recognize what this plant is. No? Murunga. This is the new item, new wonder product that Europe is now looking at. The Murunga is now classified as one of the main health items, and that are highly sought after by Europe, America and South America. So if you look at the benefits that Murunga offers, there's a chemistry teacher who might be able to pronounce the real scientific name of Murunga, but it's been classified as being rich in health, antioxidant, bioactive plant, has all these health benefits that it can offer. And now it's been turned into a kind of a wonder product in some of the European outlets. So if you can and see, these are kind of the health component of Murunga, with all the vitamins and things that have been scientifically proved that Murunga leaves and the Murunga plant contain. So this is really, I know, being from the experience in the north, these things grow like wild plants. People use as hedgerows and other things. It's not something you do as a plantation. It's just sometimes it's a nuisance plant. But this can be one of the key plant that people can convert it into an export crop and export it all over the world. And if you look at the, so as I said, that's a very, this is my last slide, but if you look at why Murunga is required, Murunga is normally procured in dry leaves. And I know a company in Germany is paying €4 per kilo of dry Murunga leaves. And they are leading at the moment, because my sister, in fact, is based in Germany. She's the one who provided this information. They are procuring this Murunga now from India. And she always says, every time I go, can you please find the Sri Lankan Murunga exporter? We really would like to procure this item from Sri Lanka, but at the moment, India is the main export, and the main markets that they are creating is like EU, USA, and South America. And normally the typical order that they place is something like 200 kilograms of Murunga. So basically, with some product like this, you can get the community involved, with the outgrower concept. You don't need a large investment in land and other thing. Everyone can grow, and you can develop a cooperative system, outgrower concept. People can supply the leaves, so someone can process it, do the sending to the plants, because I think there is a great potential for this kind of niche product, because GOTHAMI has identified all the other main investment areas, but I think this kind of area is a very attractive, especially for young women and youth that want to get involved in this. And as I said, in Jaffna and in northern Sri Lanka, this is a crop that just grows, and it doesn't need high use of fertilizer. It's kind of a grow with the season, with the rain fed and everything. So this is something that when Chamali asked me to speak about the investment opportunities, and I don't have the slides, but other main crop that actually is required in the Western markets is papaya, not papaya fruit, papaya leaves and papaya seeds. Papaya seeds is actually a highly sought out. They are paying 11 euros per kilo for, I don't know for the reason, but the main usage is actually for dog food manufacturing. They're paying 11 euros per kilo, and they can't find enough of papaya seeds. And also papaya leaves again being used for medicinal purpose, so they dried it, powder it, make it into kind of vitamins and other things. So there are a lot of these kind of niche opportunities. I think we also trying to say it's good that the government and the other sectors are looking at the big picture of infrastructure development and main markets, but I think still to evaluate poverty and looking at bringing their livelihood, skill in their livelihood, bringing up more income, better, and this kind of cottage industry can play a very significant role in the northern investment things. Because I'm following my kind of father's footsteps, love for agriculture and love for the region, I think this is something that any of you have any intention of starting a new venture in Sri Lanka, look into it, and even I will be able to provide some information, even the Commonwealth Secretariat as an organization, if there is capacity building exercise or some kind of a technical assistance that we can provide, we can do that, because we have worked with in other parts of Commonwealth, like in Uganda for the organic exporters, etc. So develop their capacity to access the markets in Europe and other parts. So that's as an international organization, the Secretariat can play a great deal in supporting it. But I think and just put this idea to your head that when you go back and just look at it, maybe tell your relatives, friends back in Jaffna or North, just look at and how we can. I think it needs to be a consolidated effort. And sometimes, unfortunately, in Sri Lanka, these things happen in isolation, and it doesn't really feed through. And also there are manipulation as well. So that's why you need to create kind of a community-based organization, cooperative. So there's a good, solid foundation that the people get the correct price and other thing. Being a farmer, my father being a farmer those days, he used to grow chilies. And Colombo, the price of pound of chilies at that time was like 12 rupees. In the 70s, that's a lot of money. It was like good. But they thought that we were minting in money because we are the chili farmers, we have all these chilies. But my father couldn't sell his chilies for the wholesalers for less than 2 rupees. So that's why we need to have this community-based, structured organization to ensure that if the moringa or papaya export takes place, that it happens in a proper structured way, the growers get a fair price, that they are not being manipulated by the middle person or the wholesalers, and then they make the money. We're going to ensure that this kind of community venture, the growers get the full benefits. Thank you for your attention, and I'm more than happy to answer any questions. Thanks.
Thank you, Sujeevan, and thank you, GOTHAMI, for a very technical and detailed presentation. And so I think following Sujeevan's words, Bernard's was at Citibank for 38 years and now become a writer. You can all take up a second career and either become shepherds or drumstick growers in Jaffna. Are there any questions, please, for any of our speakers this evening? No? Okay. Oh, there's one? Yes.
Is there a demand for the Muringakai as well?
I'm not sure. Yeah, I think the whole Moringa product, but at the moment, what market information I have is for the leaves. It's mainly for the leaves, because they either dry format and then they powder it and make it into capsules and etc.
Just a comment actually, because when I go back to Sri Lanka, I never can find. Did anyone here have crab curry with moringa leaves?
Yes.
Right.
Always.
And it's incredible. You go to Sri Lanka now and people don't cook crab curry like that. And I'm wondering where have all the moringa leaves gone? You know, even top chefs don't cook it with the moringa leaves, so the crab curry never tastes as good.
Yeah.
Anyway.
The crab curry with the moringa leaves is a very traditional eastern dish.
Oh, right.
In the eastern province of Sri Lanka.
Right.
I'm not so sure about the northern side.
Come on, man.
Maybe in the north as well, but it's a very Tamil,
I have no idea.
Tamil dish.
I just want to be reassured that we're not running out of moringa leaves in Sri
So I
Lanka.
remember all the hedgerows and everything where my father's father was all moringa leaves. It was a nuisance plant. People, as you said, drumsticks don't fetch a good price in the market. So people really, it's a very low value vegetable they consider. So people, I think, stop growing it now. But I think there's this kind of opportunity is good that people can not only the products, you can grow it in your backyard. You don't need all the.
Thank you. We have one question at the back. Jay, thank you.
Well, probably as the one and only Sri Lankan tea packer here in Spain and in Poland, I must say I have got a lot of experience on moringa for the last 8 years. And unfortunately, we are competing heavily with Africa and India on this product. Post-harvest technology is not available in Sri Lanka to export this item to these countries. There are strict regulations. Germany brings it from India, especially from Rajasthan, and they have got their process there. That's why the price comes to. I buy it almost half the price what Sri Lanka can supply. We buy quite a lot on these moringa leaves as well as the powder. I know that it's all over Sri Lanka, but unfortunately we haven't got the technology and know-how to produce it in such a way that we can export in those quantities. When you look at the product, you obviously you think, oh, this is a cash cow. We can do it, but unfortunately we have got a lot of restrictions and we haven't got the ability to do so. I hope that in the future the government will look at. It was in 1975, I believe that during the time of Lalit Atulathbudali, the minister, that we thought of establishing a post-harvest technology institute. Even today it is not there. It's very, sorry, I can't go on for a long time.
Yeah, I'm trying to stop you.
Just on the subject. Yes,
That's a very
it
good point
is
to
an
take
interesting
them back.
item.
Thank you,
We
Jay.
can crack it. Thank you.
Any other questions?
Well, I drink it every day, is all I can say. So I can tell you, it keeps me live, well, and healthy and happy. So if you guys can get together and get yourselves sorted out, you'll definitely have orders because there's an awful lot of people who are becoming more and more aware of it. As a tea, primarily.
I fully agree. I mean, building capacity is something that the post-harvest and something that even from the Commonwealth Secretariat's point of view, we are more than we have done similar kind of exercise in places like Uganda. We developed the organic exporter. We understand the market requirement, access requirements. So you need to develop the capacity, the technology, the post-harvest. So we are more than willing to work with the government of Sri Lanka and provide some technical assistance if they're required.
Yes, I think I do agree with the gentleman who said that Sri Lankan products not in most of the cases not able to really meet the required standards, and that is quite possible from the interceptions, the customs around the EU countries actually detecting on daily basis of some of the consignments, because there are two types of interceptions basically on the fresh commodities like moringa leaves. It's a fresh because they have to ensure that it's free of insects and harmful organisms in order to ensure the country that is receiving them, the environment is secured. So we are addressing this in a more pragmatic way after many number of interceptions. So we have worked with the EU officials, the Sante, that is the European Commission authority. Actually it was UK because we had the highest number of interceptions in UK. And so that is to basically to ensure that the the agriculture ministry officials actually do work with the farmers and with the nurseries and to ensure that they have pest-free areas. I think that's maybe the reason India is permitted, because normally they define a particular area within which there won't be any pests. So there is no threat when that product comes to the UK market that it would be infected with pests. So I think that is a similar approach that we must be using to really encourage our exporters to export these products to this market. And we cannot really blame the countries themselves, because they also have their agriculture sector to be protected. So, but I think we also have a lot of the problem we have also is that the more when we use pesticides to curtail the spread of such pests, then finally you ended up of having residues of pesticides in your product. So you have to really control both aspects. That would be another interception called rapid alert system for food and feed. And so they also detect if the pesticides levels are above the maximum residual levels of the Codex Alimentarius Commission. So I think there are two aspects that we have to deal with, not only the curtailing of the pests, but use of pesticides as well. So that's a very challenging, those are very challenging instances for Sri Lanka. I think we are doing well right now. So I think with a view to enhancing of agricultural exports to EU and including UK. So well, thank you very much for those comments. Certainly we will look into the post-harvest losses. That is another area where we are working on.
So I just wanted to underscore, if you will, what you just said. The pesticide aspect completely wipes out the benefits of the product. So if you do not provide it 100% organic, you can just pretty forget about it. Because there's no one in the health industry or anywhere remotely connected to that is going to be interested in that product. It's really that straightforward.
Actually, we have used the heat resistant mechanism. So in order to curtail the prevalence of insects in your commodities. But that is again another one, because you can't really undergo send through the products in a heat resistant thing. So because the product will lose its natural characteristics, and then the flavors and things like
organic.
that.
We need more organic.
Yes, organic. It's but getting the organic certification in this region, EU, is very costly. So the farmers
I
in
know.
Sri Lanka,
I import tea, and I don't even label it as organic Ceylon tea because of the cost.
Yeah.
But still, I mean, the fact that you can get organic, lovely organic Ceylon tea is wonderful.
I know.
You know, it tastes brilliant.
Yes. The tea industry is in a very developed stage. But
right, and we need it for these other products too. You know, we need these other products to catch up quickly.
We recognize that. They also have to really develop to that level. And so that's what the government is really investing. Have invested a lot of money. Even the heat treatment thing, it's very expensive. So, but still, we are trying to introduce this to the especially to address the concerns we have in the fruits and vegetables, fresh fruits and vegetables, because and even curry leaves, that's called the Muraya leaves. Now that cannot be exported because of certain stringent conditions. Now we are making a representation to the European Commission that to allege their fears, and then so that is one way. Like that, we are making representation at different level to the bodies and providing with scientific evidence to demonstrate that the products are not so infected, and then we actually able to meet the standards. So curry leaves, the Muraya leaves, it's a big issue, because I think a lot of Sri Lankans here won't be able to really have them in the future.
It's not just Sri Lankans. So Royal China, which is quite a popular restaurant on Baker Street, I've been going to for maybe 20 years, has started putting curry leaves in their dishes. And I was wondering where the influence had come from. I prefer the dish without the curry leaves because it's Chinese, but there we go. We do have another question there, and one from Malal as well. So Pushpa.
Okay, my name is Pushpa Tevi Kasinatha. My father is Bani Tambi, and I'm originally from Malaysia, Kuala Lumpur, Malaysia. Sir Peter Heap and Lady Anne very kindly introduced me to Sri Lanka, because my parents came from. This is just a lovely story about myself and how I became associated with Sri Lanka. My parents immigrated to Kuala Lumpur, Malaysia, and I consider myself Malaysian, but looking at me and looking at my dad's eyes, everyone says, "Are you from Sri Lanka?" I said, "No, I'm Malaysian." But Sir Peter Heap, who are very kindly associated with work and put him on cruise ships and P&O cruises, said, "Pushpa, you should go back to Sri Lanka." And I did 2 years ago. And I've got 1,000 pictures of Jaffna. And I've been from Colombo to Jaffna on a train journey and went back home 60 years later to see my father's homeland and to see St. Henry's College where he studied in. And I have very, very passionate about Sri Lanka now at 62. And I would love to suggest something like in Malaysia, the Malaysian community had Trafalgar Square closed up for Malaysia Kitchen. I would love to introduce Sri Lankan kitchen, Sri Lankan culture, Sri Lankan food, Sri Lankan exports, Sri Lankan imports, and everything to do with Sri Lanka. And I'm very passionate to start something like that. And I wonder whether the Trade Commission and everyone else will jump on the bandwagon and say, yeah, let's do it once a year on a Friday, 3rd week of September, meet in Trafalgar Square, come and see Sri Lanka.
Can I interrupt you? We had one.
Yeah.
We had about 10 years ago.
Thank you.
By tourist boat, so we
Yes.
had a big event.
It's amazing. You should
Yes.
have it.
But-
Malaysia Kitchen had it for 5 years, and they had Malaysia on the map for the whole of the UK. And that's what we in Sri
Of course, we got
Lanka
the embassy
should do.
opposite.
Yeah.
You know,
So-
sorry,
Does
John.
anyone know why
Thank
that
you.
we only had one? You're quite right.
It's because I think the hotels organized it. All the hotels
Yes.
came from Sri Lanka,
Yes.
including the chefs.
Yes.
And we had even palm readings and
Yes.
everything was done.
Everything.
Sri Lanka, big event.
I think that was refreshingly Sri Lanka in
before that.
No, by
No,
Sri Lankan
no,
tourist
no,
board.
no.
Yes, this is about probably 8 years ago.
Amal?
Yes, I was wondering if Bernard actually could join the panel, because my question is more towards
You need
to Bernard.
squash in there.
Bernard,
Actually, those chemistry questions you can ask.
yeah. I'm going to tell you why H2O is water, actually. So the thing is, Bernard, you actually are very unique in that not only were you brought up in Jaffna, but you've had a very great international experience. I started in banking there as well, but you've had a long association with Citibank. And also I know that you've set up lots of other business initiatives and philanthropic initiatives all over Sri Lanka, especially the north. And really, and I think you're associated now with the National Development Bank in Colombo as well. So you form a really good bridge between London especially and Sri Lanka generally. And with the large diaspora community here, whether you've been able to really act as a bridge, especially in financing and other trade and investment opportunities between Britain and UK, and how that can really develop.
I've forgotten the question.
Back to chemistry, you fell asleep after.
I was shaking my legs. I think there are a lot of people are doing that, right? And a lot of people are capable of doing that. And I think, I am playing my part in it. We have two of my colleagues here. We started a charity to rebuild the deaf and blind school. So, like that, there are a lot of things that are going on. Of course, if there are any opportunities that can happen, I just heard about this Northern Province Planning Bureau, whatever it is, that's going to be started. Obviously there will be a lot of people who will be keen to participate. The thing is that we are not getting to know, we need to get to know about it. Unless, so for example, even the figures that you put in about unemployment rate and the poverty index and the comparison, we didn't know about it, right? It's not anyone's fault, it's just that we need to get all these things, the Jaffna information or Sri Lanka information should be in front of the people all the time. Unless I follow you on Twitter, I don't hear half the things, Amma, right? So I think it is important that people need to get to hear about it.
That's a very valid point.
Yes, just jump in. As you said, you mentioned a very good point, because at the moment, especially the diaspora community with the current interest rates, what's it offering in UK, there are wonderful investment opportunities, but you need to build that trust. we're also working in other parts of the world about having this diaspora bonds and other things. So you're looking the return, the safety, hospitality. So these are the things that I think the government of Sri Lanka and plus the banking community can develop. So the diaspora community here, instead of, you might as well now put your money into keep it under the bed rather than putting it into the bank, the returns you get. So I think there is a great scope for this. People who have spare capital looking at investment, but you need to develop the trust first that the money you put in there goes to the right place and is safe and it's not suddenly disappeared like other quick pro ventures.
Maybe don't put your money under the bed at home. I'll have to represent you. I've got two questions. Can I take the lady in the striped jumper? Oh, it's Anand. Yes. Sorry, I can't see you.
So you're overriding the ambassador.
Well, I just saw that on that hand had been up for a long
This
time.
question is for Bernard, Sinniah and St. John's. My father went to St. John's until he was 10, when his father thought he was too Anglicanized, had become Anglicanized, and took him, he's our pastor in England. Your principal, Ponraja, taught me chemistry. He came home and he used to tutor me in chemistry.
He failed chemistry, but anyway.
No wonder, I passed.
He's actually my classmate.
He was your classmate, but he did do chemistry in Peradeniya, didn't he?
Maybe.
And then became a priest.
Yes.
Okay.
That's what happens when you study chemistry. Either you become a priest or you follow Sujata.
Oh, by the way, Sujata was a favorite actress of mine. Mayangahiral Orumade, Lalita. Remember those films?
Yeah. Thanks very much, Anand. High Commissioner.
That was not a question, a statement.
I wanted to actually also talk about your book, which I haven't read, but this forum reminded me of, I think, Sivananda's When Memory Dies, and which has a lot on agriculture, especially when SUJEEVAN was speaking about Chile and all that. The first chapters are all about the vibrancy of agricultural cultivation in Jaffna. But coming on to the diaspora community, I think what is probably particularly interesting about your presentation is you actually projected Jaffna as such a wonderful place, normalcy, and your boyhood. I think that's very, very interesting, and I didn't see it framed with the conflict in any way. I don't know whether that was deliberate or whether your book actually refers to it, I'm not sure. But my question is not on that. My question is on how diaspora should engage with the development of Jaffna. Back again, taking off from what Amal said and your response, where you indicated you don't actually know a lot of things, like the poverty levels or unemployment. Now, so many members of the diaspora visit Jaffna every year now, more and more. So many of the tourists who are visiting are actually the diaspora. So they do engage with their families, extended families. They get to know about Jaffna. They see prosperity. A lot of the investment in Jaffna is a very, very small, B&Bs, that kind of thing. You see Italian designs. You see all kinds of, very international sort of look in Jaffna. This is all investment coming into the country in a small way. So shouldn't that information be out there? I mean, shouldn't those people should know what the diaspora experiences firsthand? Back again, it should come back to, it need not be one or two people on Twitter. It should be like a lot of people having this conversation, social media or wherever, in different fora. I'd like to have
I mean, I have been to Jaffna 3 or 4 times last year. So the first few times I went, you go for a purpose, right? So that will be, in my case, the lady touched on the principal. He's my classmate. We are working together to help St. John's to become better in our field school, deaf and blind school that 8 of us got together and rebuilt it with the help of so many people. So you go for a purpose. So first day you achieve the purpose. Second day you go to Kashuna Beach or Kirimala. Third day you have a toddy and then you get into the train. Right? So it depends on why you are going there. if you are going to, really reach out, and, one trip I did go and meet all the startups, where there's a thing called YAL IT Hub, which has got amazing talent coming out of it. And great startups are being built, and, it's applied to some of the companies in Colombo as well, and scaling globally as well. So then, but if you don't search for it, you are not going, it's not in your face. It's a two-way street, I totally agree. We can't just wait for everyone else to come. We have to ask and we have to seek for it. But the reality of the situation is that not many people know what is, we hear about there are fights going on, there are deaths, there are motorcycles hitting each other, all the drama, there are drugs and all those things. We don't hear the good stories. So it's a combination that we need to do it. So when I came back, I put it on Facebook and Twitter and Instagram, everything, the startups that I met. But then what, right? So we have to keep doing it, I think. So all of us have to do it.
Well, I hope that this can be perhaps the start of greater dialogue between Sri Lanka and the UK. Anton.
Can I directly put a question to the Excellency High Commissioner, if I may, as a frank question, and what impact the political climate in Sri Lanka is having on encouraging foreign investors to go into the investment in Sri Lanka? The political stability is still not correct in the situation, political situation, like elections coming, you don't know which government is going to form, what their policies are. So any intelligent or big infrastructure investor will be looking at that first before they could go in and invest their money.
Anton, if I could just, I should say, Friends of Sri Lanka, we're not a political association.
Yeah.
The problems you've cited actually are problems we're having in this country with Brexit in terms of where are we going and who's leading us. The High Commission, it's entirely up to you if you'd like to address that point. But yeah, if you want to, you don't have to.
Well, I was going to say the same thing. Predictability is something we don't have here as well with Brexit. But certainly, I think it's very important to have predictability. I think Sri Lanka has political stability somewhat. I think Sri Lanka has political stability. Predictability probably is something that we need to have. But more than anything else, I think we need to have a very clear investment policy, which is something that probably GOTHAMI would agree with. We need to have, in the ease of doing business index, we need to sort of go up. And when it comes to investment, we need to have that one-stop shop approach. So I think there are, in terms of investment policy, there are certain improvements to be made. I think that would probably be more important than.
I think taking on from the High Commissioner's point, there's a huge amount of wealth that's been created in this country by the second generation diaspora community. And I put it to the panel, how do we tap into that wealth for the betterment of Sri Lanka is what we need to consider very seriously. A huge amount, among the whole Sri Lankan community, by and large the Tamil community have a huge amount of wealth here. How do you tap into that?
I think it goes back to the answer in a way that even if you tap it, you need to have proper methodology to get it to Sri Lanka and to put it in the right place. So information to, one-stop shop, I completely agree. I think at the moment you got to, I think the ease of doing business, I think Sri Lanka is very low at the moment. So, and then also Sri Lanka needs to also attract expats. Right? At the moment, we all, within us, we are happy and are champion, but we need to bring expats to go and work. There's a great presentation by Professor Houseman who is saying that Sri Lanka lacks that. Right? Even if you want to go and work there, you need to be, the ease to work there needs to be better.
But having said that, I think it's the post-2015 government that for the first time recognized the potential of the diaspora and actually reached out to the diaspora in terms of economic reinvestment back in the country. Whether that is happening at the level that is satisfactory is a different debate. But certainly that policy framework, that interest is there. it
The
recognized that
information needs to
diaspora is
leak
very,
out
very
before. I
important.
think
Yeah.
the information needs to leak out.
Yeah.
before.
And it's not necessarily that you have to start a very big business, because you have to remember the unique structure of the northern province. There are all business enterprises are either small or medium. Only very few large enterprises are there. So a lot of, I think it's not necessary that you have to have a big enterprise. So I think that's what the master plan is trying to aim at, to tap that particular small and SME sector. And so the investment, it's actually kind of a matchmaking. So certainly, as High Commissioner said, that we have the Board of Investment now going to be the single entity dealing with all foreign investment, whether it's small or big. I think certainly the High Commission, we are here, so we would love to really take this debate further and then educate our interested parties and what are the potentials that lie in the province. I think, thank you Chamali for the selecting. I think I will also would like to join the other speakers in congratulating you on the selection of this topic. I think it's a timely topic since we have this master plan which has been just released and being now subject to public comments, and it actually commissioned by the Central Bank of Sri Lanka. The present governor is Mr. Indradip Kumaraswamy, who himself is a Tamil. We are very proud of him. So I think the central bank is taking a very sort of an initiative to take this plan forward, and then so it needs to be shaped up and then come up with so many policies and the strategies, I think, as per the plan.
Thank you. SUJEEVAN, I'll like you to fill in, but just try and keep it very brief because I think there are two more questions that I'd like to
I
take.
think this question you raise is not only the Sri Lankan community, it happens to apply to the whole diaspora community living in UK, especially Jamaica. They are a very rich diaspora community and they are looking for opportunities to invest back home. I think the thing that Bernard said, that we need to find the vehicle. People still need to trust whether what you put in, what's the return, whether the return is not taxed or whether you get a fair return. Still that trust element is not there. That's why people are reluctant. And it does not only apply to the Sri Lankan diaspora community, we have done other work on other communities like Jamaican and the African diaspora. They have the money, and especially in the Caribbean, they are debt-ridden, they require this kind of investment, but it's the lack of trust and certainty of what they get in return. That's the problem. So we need to develop, I think the state role is to develop those institutions, the vehicles that the people feel comfortable in, putting that money and get return.
And dare I mention, sorry to bring this up, but it's a really difficult one, corruption.
Yeah. That's the one of the things.
It's really difficult for us as diaspora who've lived in the UK several years, decades, to stomach corruption in Sri Lanka.
Yeah, that's
and so
right.
this is tough.
Because the people might put in a development fund, but they wouldn't see that it will go to development, it will go to some other nepotism or something like that. So that's the issue, not only for the Sri Lanka, but it's through the other Commonwealth countries that diaspora communities find it difficult because they don't have the trust.
So I have Thana at the back. Do you want to ask your question? And before it's answered, I'll take Sandy's question as well.
No,
just 1 second. We'll take Thana's question first.
Thank you, Chamali. It's not actually a question, but I want to record a statement in terms of the diaspora engagement that was raised. One of the difficulties the diaspora community has here in investment is that if you take the region, India and Pakistan, like SUJEEVAN quite rightly mentioned, there are diaspora communities who are interested in investing, especially the second and the third generation. But the difference is, like India and Pakistan, there's a preferential system for overseas citizens to go back and invest. So there's an overseas citizen scheme for Indians, and there's an overseas citizen scheme for Pakistanis. But we don't have a similar situation in Sri Lanka. And I have raised this with several authorities in Sri Lanka, saying that there has to be a preferential system for non-resident or overseas Sri Lankan citizens to go back and buy properties or invest in Sri Lanka. And I think that is a key thing that has to happen.
Okay, before I take the panel's response on that, so that's the overseas citizenship of India. Could we have something similar for Sri Lanka? Can I take Sandy Pereira's question as well?
No, I just want to make a point that I think in the beginning we said real estate. Now this is one point I will just raise. Why at the moment everybody invests in real estate in Sri Lanka is because I know at the present moment there's so many countries, including, I'm just giving an example, Israelis, Italians, everybody investing because they feel that's the only subject that actually able to go to Sri Lanka and invest and buy a land, build a property, build a hotel. So that's because the confidence is there because other people has achieved in recent terms, like recent years. So even us is the same thing. We have gone to properties, but not the level that people are actually encouraging us to buy properties and encourage to rent. The promises that we given by the high-end market is not being fulfilled. So it was actually even we are going tomorrow to Sri Lanka. So that is another fundamental thing. So these small agricultural point of view and other small investment all over the country, why we are lacking the foreign investors is because there is no clarity, there is no confidence, we are not able to find the information like when you just said. That is, I think that's the thing. That's why a lot of people willing to invest, but they don't have the trust, or like other lady just mentioned about the corruption and the negativeness you come across, including the political situation. So I think there's plenty of people to invest in Sri Lanka. That's a great, positive thing. Yeah. We all willing to invest. It's just that we always going for the most least likely that we will actually get burned.
Safest option.
Yeah.
Okay, so on the safest option, but also on the possibility, and the High Commission might want to tell us as well, of an overseas citizen of Sri Lanka card.
Yes, I think we have studied the Indian scheme, and one time I think some years back, that time I was in Australia. I'm talking of 2009, 8-9 period. I think Sri Lanka also sort of very strongly favored such an approach where we plan to give more concessions for the returning the diaspora community, and. But I think due to certain reasons, because what happened is the definition of an investor in an investment treaty, I think it bogged down due to some legal issues. Not that Sri Lanka was not willing to do that. I think they explored it to a large extent, but due to certain legal implications. Actually, we wanted to know how India escaped it from, but because India, that has already abolished all their investment treaties. So India is free to do anything, but whereas Sri Lanka has certain agreements which we have signed with bilateral parties. So how do we really give a special privilege to a particular investor because of his those are those issues that we had to deal with. But certainly we'll again see the possibilities whether such a scheme can be replicated even in the Sri Lankan context.
Thank you very much.
Jothami, being from the diplomatic corps, gave a very diplomatic answer. I have a reason why there is such recent opposition, because there is a school of thought within Sri Lanka, I think, especially the diaspora coming, especially in the real estate, they're driving up the prices. So therefore, the locals are complaining because of, you bring your dollars, pounds, and suddenly buying the real estate. Look at the real estate value in Sri Lanka now. It's like purchase over 20 million rupees or something like that. So low, and also like places like Gold Fort, they say there's no space available because it's all bought by they call it the foreigners. So that's I think one of the reasons why one stage they stop all these foreign overseas residents to purchase property, because of the resentment coming from the local community, that because of their money. You have the similar situation in London because of the Russian oligarchs and Arabs are buying. You can't, real estate prices are completely out of your locals' reach. So that's one of the reason I think was there's kind of a moratorium on this kind of thing, but I think we need to strike a balance. The real estate is an opportunity, but people just putting money on the real estate, and like any other, now the real estate value, especially in Colombo, is almost par with any of the Western European or North American cities. So it's become a very lucrative, but there's the affordability for the locals. So that balance is a very difficult thing to strike, I think.
Thank you very
Can I
much.
just say one thing with regard to the real estate sector? I think the focus, there's a real estate boom. There's a huge demand in that sector, and real estate luxury apartments are actually being marketed in stations where there's a huge diaspora. Like, for example, the UK has become a huge center for real estate companies to market their apartments. So they're actually very focusing on the diaspora in a very targeted manner. It's true, SUJEEVAN, that the prices are driven up because of the diaspora, but it's also economics. So actually the companies are targeting the diaspora in Australia, in the UK. For example, ITC had its global launch here. So this is one aspect which is a reality. So I think there is a real push to actually reach out to the diaspora in areas where there is demand, areas where it's sort of working. But certain other sectors, it's probably difficult because there are a range of factors that lead to attracting investment. We are competitive in certain sectors, we are not. But having said that, there are GOTHAMI certain sectors where we are very decisively seeking investment. And if that investment is coming from the diaspora parties, I think we would like to request each and every one of you to immediately get in touch with us. Because in certain sectors, I think the government is very interested in actually pushing investment, but not in sectors where there's a survey.
Yeah,
for example.
actually what Northern Province requires, so in my presentation I try to say the gaps, there are a lot of gaps that we need to really bridge in. And so using the resources, the domestic local resources, otherwise those farmers who are providing the raw materials to the food processing sector, they are going to be out of the market. So the master plan also trying to evolve that, then using the local resources, the skills, because otherwise asking them to change their profession, it's going to cost a lot for them. So
where can we get the master plan? What's the website?
It's in the slides, I think. The link is in the slides.
Oh, in the slides. Okay.
Yeah.
It's
We'll make sure anyone who wants it, if they want to get in touch with us, because of GDPR, we can't pump you with information that you haven't signed up for. Oh, there you go. If anyone else wants it, we can always circulate that.
So this is a very good document, and coupled with the the introduction of these new incentives, because also need to figure out some of these incentives, because they also have to be revised or from time to time, because there are a lot of multilateral disciplines that we had to also adhere to, because these are concessions and finally will be known as subsidies. So Sri Lanka actually also had to be cautious, because provided these subsidies are going to be countervailed by another country, importing country, and they can add additional charges, because recently we have two cases from the United States. It's on rubber tires and rubber bands. So they found that we are subsidizing our exporters, which is not the case. So we fought and we won those cases. So they are going to put a lot of pressure on us to do away with these subsidies. So therefore the BOIs actually is evolving a scheme. That's why from time to time you see changes to the investment policy, because we also have to cope up with that pressure and then to be in line with international obligations under the World Trade Organization. So so that's the other aspect that I wanted to inject, because we see that policies are being changed. But the thing is the protection for your investment. We have signed a lot of bilateral investment treaties. Actually, in those treaties, the investor rights are being enshrined and ensured. So it's about, as SUJEEVAN said, return on investment. That is not something that is assured in the but protection for your investment is provided.
Yeah,
think,
I do think the perspective some people are coming from is a genuine perspective of having had their fingers burnt in investing in Sri Lanka. You mentioned lawyers and the legal complications. I'm not trying to talk myself into a job here, but there are solutions even in this country. There are solutions in terms of developers being prevented from selling to non-nationals first in phase one of a development. So that's something maybe Sri Lanka would look at. I'm going to, in a moment, try and wrap things up. I can't see any other hands up in the audience. I want to say that Bernard's book is available and he's willing to sign copies of it. It's selling for a special price of £10 here tonight. It'll cost you more to buy it anywhere else, even on Amazon. So try and make use of that opportunity. And I also, from my perspective, we weren't expecting the High Commissioner here today, but you have been so engaging, and it's very nice of you to respond to some of the questions and indeed give us the level of detail that you have done. So thank you very much for being here. I know it was a busy day for you and we hoped you'd be here, but it's the icing on the cake that you decided to join us as well. I'd like to introduce Sir Peter Heap, our long-standing chairman. Peter's connection to Sri Lanka stems from serving the British Foreign and Commonwealth Office as first officer to the British High Commission in Sri Lanka. And he has enjoyed a long and distinguished career with the British Foreign Office and went on, as I said earlier, to become head of diplomatic missions in sunny destinations such as Brazil and the Bahamas. Peter, thank you so much for your support of the association, and I'd like to call you up to propose the vote of thanks.
Thank you. You've already seen me once, so I'm not sure I need any introduction, but we've had a real treat today with 5 speakers, in effect, with the 3 on my left and Chamali speaking on the tourism and the High Commissioner telling us about her just an ordinary day in the life of a High Commissioner. We haven't quite finished because the next item on the agenda is drinks and refreshments outside. And if I were to spend time thanking each of the speakers individually, that would postpone that, and I'm sure you don't want that. So a collective thank you to the 3 on my left, to Chamali and to the High Commissioner for a great evening. And I'm sure they'll answer or discuss with you or answer your questions over drinks outside. Thank you.